Okay, so welcome to our podcast. This is a little bit different today because this podcast is a spin-off of our radio show. We're with the Sleep Doctor.
That's me.
And I think you're not just a sleep doctor. I mean, right? I remember when I first met you, you passed the medical board, right?
Sure. So there's a lot of different kinds of sleep doctors out there. Some sleep doctors are medical doctors that specialize in particular areas of specialty. The most popular would be pulmonologists. Now, I don't understand exactly why, because, pulmonologists are lung doctors, right? So they're kind of areas from here to here. Most people go to them for snoring, which is kind of an ENT issue, right? It's an ear, nose, and throat issue, but pulmonologists, for the large part, maybe 70 to 80% of sleep specialists are pulmonary. Then you got about maybe 10, 15% are neurology for narcolepsy, restless leg syndrome, things like that. Then there's a whole mishmash of different types of doctors who have decided to get into sleep. I fall into that category. I have a PhD in clinical psychology, but I'm medically board certified in clinical sleep disorders. So a lot of people are like, wait a second, you just said you had a PhD and you're a psychologist. Now you're saying you're medically certified. How does something like that happen? So I took the medical boards without going to medical school and passed. I'm one of 168 people in the world that have ever done it.
And Carrie went to medical school, took the medical boards and passed.
And passed.
That's right.
God.
And
Yeah.
I have sleeping disorders. So
this is the perfect combination of people.
Yeah, and I'm obsessed with sleep. I mean, how important is sleep to the human body?
So when we look at it, here's what's interesting is we don't exactly know the exact function of sleep, but what we do know is that, in fact, if we don't sleep, really bad stuff has a tendency to happen.
Or death.
Death is definitely one of the several things. So like with a lot of people, if they become so sleep deprived, like a lot of people think, well, can you sleep deprive yourself to death? Well, you can if you fall asleep while driving a vehicle, right? And that happens more. I mean, how many times in your practice have you talked to somebody where you're trying to diagnose some sort of sleep disorder and they say, oh, I fell asleep at a stoplight?
Oh, I mean, it happens all the time. Unfortunately, people don't like to report that happening.
Right. Especially truck drivers, by the way.
Yes, anyone with a commercial license.
Right, is certainly not going to be interested in doing any of that. But we know that if we don't sleep, certain things are going to happen on the physical side, on the emotional side, as well as on the cognitive side. So physically, we know reaction time slows down significantly. As a matter of fact, when I deal with athletes, one of the things that they tell me all the time is they're like, oh, dude, if I'm sleep deprived, like I'm not moving in practice, I'm not doing well in the game. When you actually look at the data, they're about a third slower.
Yeah, the reaction time is actually measurable.
Right. And then when you look at their testosterone levels, specifically in the male players, and they're sleep deprived,
They tanks.
So a 22-year-old who is sleep deprived is playing like a 33-year-old in a lot of instances. And so sleep turns out to be incredibly important. Also, I mean, not just in sports, but I mean, sports is kind of a fun analogy to look at. I mean, if you want to remember the plays, you better have had a good night's sleep, right? So memory consolidation, things like that. And then emotionally speaking, your emotions are highly driven by sleep. As a matter of fact, I would argue that almost every emotional state gets exaggerated with sleep deprivation. Depression gets more depression. Anxiety makes more anxiety. I mean, I say it all the time, but it's really true. Literally everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Can we walk it back though? Because I think sleep is a word that is misunderstood and misused. And I have a saying that I say to people all the time. They say, oh, well, it's not my sleep. I'm in bed 8 hours. I go, well, you may be lying in bed. You may not even know that you're awake half the time because we have what's called light sleep, deep sleep. We'll go into all that. But, I think we need to define what are the stages of sleep, what are the amount of times that a healthy person spends in those. And then really, how do we even know what we're doing in bed?
Right. So there's a lot to unpack there. So at the end of the day, there's only a few stages that are really important for you to kind of start to understand more about. And that's stages 3 and 4, deep sleep, as you correctly identified, and then REM sleep or REM sleep, right? So stage 3 and 4, deep sleep, that's the wake up and feel great. That's the physical restoration, okay? Turns out that happens in the first third of the night. So whoever created this unit that we're all living in decided that we need deep sleep at the front end of the night to really get that physical restoration going. Then we have a period of time where there's a lot of kind of extra, and then we got more REM sleep towards the end of the night. REM sleep is that mental restoration. So you want to do things to either positively accentuate deep sleep and REM sleep, or for the very least, don't add anything that takes away from either one of those. Two big insulters, caffeine and alcohol. Okay. And so when we start to look at these things, those are the sleep stages that turn out to be the most important. If you were looking at them like on a tracker, I would say you would want those to be somewhere, depending upon your age, in the maybe 18 to 25% for either one of those, either deep sleep or REM sleep. Roughly in younger people, so we're talking 18 to 25, should be about 25% of your night.
Can you give that in hours?
So if you, as an example, if you slept 8 hours, then it would be 2 hours of deep and 2 hours of REM.
That's for a younger, really
for a young person,
right?
18 to 25. Now, I'm 55 years old. There's no universe where I get that much of either one of those.
What's the most deep sleep you get at 55 years old as a sleep doctor?
So it depends on several different factors. It can depend upon my hormone levels. It can depend upon my stress levels. How much caffeine did I have?
Yeah, but what is your record?
Oh, my personal one? I rarely get more than probably, I'm trying to think, I could pull it up on my thing, maybe 65 to 70 minutes.
Okay.
We need to work
across
on
the
that.
night. Yeah.
Can that go up? Because that's roughly where my big nights is that.
Yeah. So it's a
But
great
your
question.
sleep cycle is really short.
Right. But I mean, right now I'm on vacation, so I'm really trying to do everything I can to get as much deep sleep as possible. I hit a 94 the other day.
That's awesome.
On my Oura Ring. And the things I do to get that sleep, I want to run by you, but
Please.
something that you just said and something you said. So at her facility, you know, I work out there.
Right.
And
Me too.
And I did this thing with, have you done the lights yet?
The light bed.
Okay. Wait
Oh, yeah, the red bed? Oh, I love
No,
that
not
thing.
the red bed. No, the blue lights.
Oh, he hasn't done the blue lights.
Okay.
No.
okay.
So she has this new thing now. It's freaking nuts. You get in a plank position and they have lights.
Right.
Blue lights, red lights, and you have to hit the blue lights a certain time.
Got it.
Now, you know, I do a radio show and I don't sleep a lot.
Right.
I've learned a lot about sleep in the last couple of years. I'm increasing my sleep. But for 30 years, I'm getting 4.5 hours sleep. And I think I've made horrible decisions in the past and done terrible things because of the lack of sleep, right?
I'm sure.
Eating bad food. So anyway, I've been on vacation for about a week now, 10, 15 days.
Right.
And I got great sleep on my ring.
Okay.
I go do the blue lights with her at her place.
Right.
And I got my all-time personal record, which is the second highest record in the building.
Yes,
wow.
we don't want to keep rubbing that in.
And I think it's because I got a good night's sleep.
And
I mean, you know what I mean? That's
So your reaction time
was so
in-
much faster.
Yeah, because that skill, if you want to call it that, is all about reaction time.
Yeah,
That's what's crazy.
Because I got good sleep. I had about an hour and 10 minutes of deep sleep.
Right. About 70 minutes.
Yeah, and I was like blown away that I got that much. Because when I look at the ring, it's all blue. And I get all blue. Looks great. Most of the time, I'm red. Right? So that's how important sleep is. I mean, it's a game changer. LeBron James talks about it. He has to get at least 8 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah.
8 hours.
And I mean, not the best example of athlete, but an interesting one, Lance Armstrong. He would say every single time before a race, he was getting 10, 11, 12 hours of sleep because he had such a major expenditure of energy during races that he felt like he absolutely had to have that kind of level of recovery.
But how do you get that much sleep?
Yeah, was he augmenting to get that much
Well,
sleep?
he was augmenting a lot of things, so it's kind of hard to figure that one out.
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, here's the good news is your body will only sleep as much as it needs, right? So there's never a time where your body is going to sleep too much, right? Now I will tell you that there are some times where people are like, well, Dr. Breus, is it okay that I sleep 9.5 hours a night, 10 hours a night? That's a little much, right? So on average, for an adult, we want to see somewhere between 7 and 9 hours. Me personally, I never get more than about 6:15. Just don't. Just is my body. I go to bed at exactly the same time every night. My body just wakes me up. It's natural. It's kind of how I work. But we're looking for generally between 7 and 9 hours. When somebody says they get more than 9 hours, then I'm looking at a quality issue. So so far we've only been talking about quantity, minutes, hours, things like that, right? But it's really about the quality of the minutes during the sleep that really make up, I would argue, that the bulk of what it is that we're kind of looking here for which is optimization.
So, when we talk about sleep efficiency, which we haven't touched on, and that's something you specialize in, which I find incredibly unique. So he actually will take individuals, prominent CEOs, athletes who say, I only have 6 hours to sleep. And that's a real statement for some people.
Oh, yes.
How do you still get the quality of the sleep and condense the amount of time that you're spending in bed. And so that's what you're touching on right now.
Correct. So I have a secret weapon. So in my third book called The Power of When, I started looking at these things called chronotypes. So a chronotype is a genetic predetermined sleep schedule. I can actually look at your 23andMe data or your Ancestry.com data, and I can go to a very specific part of the human genome, PER3 area in particular. And if it's switched one way, you're automatically a night owl. If it's switched another way, you're automatically an early bird. If it's where it's supposed to be, you're kind of in the middle. And then there's one that's just kind of random. If you fall into one of those four categories, which by the way, almost every single person on earth does, if I get you to sleep when your body wants to genetically, you sleep more efficiently. Like,
but what if you're a night owl, but your career is an early bird?
So that's a great question, right? So let's take you for an example. Let's just claim that you're a night owl, but you got to get up at the butt crack of dawn to start your radio show, right? So how do we deal with somebody like that? So number one is we have you still going to bed at a night owl's bedtime. You would wake up after a certain period of time, probably, I would probably do 90-minute segments. So I'd probably do 3 90-minute segments for you. So I'd say you'd sleep for 4.5 hours. I'd have you wake up, shower, do your thing, go, do your radio show, get there in the morning, and then when you came back, I'd have you take a nap in the afternoon.
Wow.
Right? So I would parse out your sleep. That way I know you're getting the bulk of the physical restoration that night so you can perform. And then during the nap time during the day, I can get you to get a little extra sleep in there. And it's not as hard as you might think. People are like, oh, I don't have time for a nap, Michael. Like, what are you talking about? You would be shocked. It's not a 1-for-1 ratio. I don't have to give you 2 hours nap of sleep during the daytime for it to actually catch up to a lot of the sleep that you need, because I'm giving it to you at the right time for your genetics.
But what if you are in the situation we just described? Could those pieces of the puzzle fall into place organically? Because you just described pretty much what happens. I get up early, I go to work, and then I'll come home and do a 10, 20-minute nap if I can, just automatically without even talking to you. And I'm kind of like, oh, that is my schedule.
So what that tells me is you are particularly in tune with your body.
I'm trying, right? I've been trying for the last couple of years because of her.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what she did for both of us, right? I mean,
right.
I had a massive body change as well working with Dr. Perdinko. So like, I get it, but your body will start to adapt to what it's naturally supposed to do. Right. So it's almost like you're not adapting. You're kind of going backwards to like the origins of sleep, because your body wants to sleep and it knows when it wants to sleep.
And you feel so good when you get a good night's sleep.
Right. But
like, it's a game changer.
Dude, it's huge. But we have these things called caffeine that make us think that we don't need sleep. Right. You know, and then we have adrenaline and cortisol that kick in due to stress. And then we feel like we don't need sleep. And then all of a sudden we're kind of wandering into this universe of insomnia. Right. So that's my area of specialty. That's where I have a tendency to play.
Insomnia
a lot.
is your thing?
Is my biggest thing is insomnia. Well, because I have a PhD in clinical psychology, and I believe there's a large psychological side to insomnia. But having the medical background, I know the biology behind the insomnia as well. And so when you can take those two together, now you're in something different. Now you're kind of thinking through a few different ideas here. Now, I will tell you that a lot of people try to treat their own insomnia, right, with supplementation.
Or medication.
Which
is number one would be alcohol.
Yes, it would. So
you mean they take alcohol to help them go to sleep?
They
Correct.
believe that alcohol actually gets them to sleep, and it does. Alcohol does get you to sleep. It doesn't get you to quality sleep.
Right.
And then it also allows you to wake up midstream, which is a big problem. But alcohol is probably the number one tool that people turn to treat insomnia on their own.
See, I know people that they say they have insomnia, and they drink.
Right.
And I say, well, you're drinking. That's I in so many words, same thing you said, but it's like so insomnia is a real thing.
So there's no question insomnia is a real
I thought
thing.
maybe it's
So a lot of people at one time people used to think, oh, insomnia is just a mental health issue. There is true biology to insomnia. Let me explain. So when you're falling asleep at night, your core body temperature rises till about 10:30, hits a peak, and then it begins to drop. That drop has to happen in order for your brain to release melatonin. So as soon as it recognizes the temperature drop, your pineal gland kicks off some melatonin and you start to fall asleep. Now, your core body temperature keeps dropping, but if it keeps dropping all night long, you go to this thing called hypothermia. Not good, right? So your body wants to warm back up. Now, most people, when they turn to me and they say they have insomnia, it's rare that they say, I can't fall asleep. It's usually, I fall asleep fine,
can't stay asleep.
but I wake up somewhere between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm up for 3 hours. What the hell is that, Michael? I'll give you one guess what time most people's core body temperature starts to heat up.
Between 1 and 3.
Between 1 and 3 in the morning,
Sure.
exactly. And so what happens is you automatically go into a lighter stage of sleep. I'm here to tell you, every person on earth wakes up between 1 and 3 in the morning.
You just don't know it.
Exactly, right? Because you have to be up long enough for your body to recognize it. So what most people do is they wake up, they roll over, and they fall back asleep. The problem comes is when they wake up and they say, I wonder what time it is. And they look at the clock.
Big
and they
mistake.
Instantly do the mental math. And then they say, oh shit, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I got to be up at 6. Sleep, sleep, sleep. And they try to mentally force themselves to sleep. Now, I want to be honest with you, Johnjay. In the history of time, no one has ever mentally forced themselves to sleep. Nobody has, because you're doing literally the opposite of what you want the brain to do. You want the brain to calm down, not heat up. And so when you're sitting there telling yourself, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, you're firing all these neurons and you're doing exactly the opposite of what we want you to do.
So what do you do? A sleep meditation?
Exactly. What you want to do is you want to lower your heart rate. So I'm going to teach everybody right now the easiest way to lower your heart rate in the middle of the night. It's called 4-7-8 breathing. Okay. This was developed by Dr. Andrew Weil. It's a very interesting technique. It's very simple, and you can do it in bed in the middle of the night. So you breathe in slowly for a count of 4, you hold for a count of 7, and then you push out for a count of 8. All right. Now, if you can't do exactly that, you can do 4, 5, 6, right, until you get there. But what it does, so it was originally developed, believe it or not, for Navy SEALs, specifically snipers. So when you're shooting downrange, right, if your heart's beating too fast, you can actually change the trajectory of the bullet. So we teach those guys and gals to shoot in between heartbeats. The only way you can do that is to slow their heartbeat down. So this is the method that's used to slow their heartbeat below 60 so they can shoot. What most people don't know is in order to enter into a state of unconsciousness, you need a heart rate of 60 or below. So this is the perfect technique to use in the middle of the night to be able to allow yourself to kind of get yourself back to sleep. Now, there's another problem that happens in the middle of the night. Urination. Okay.
Very, very prominent issue.
I deal with that right now. I went 4 times last night.
Okay, so we can talk about that in just a second. But here's the thing, is I tell this to people all the time. Do you really have to pee? That's the question I ask people, and here's why. Because here's what happened. Remember, got to have a heart rate of 60. Most people are like, well, I'm up. I might as well see if I have to go. And then they go from a lying position to a seated position to a standing position. Guess what? They just jacked their heart rate up. They probably went into the bathroom and flipped on the light, which told their brain it's morning, so no more melatonin, right? If you got to pee, please go pee, all right? I'm not telling you not to go pee. But if you really don't have to pee, stay in bed, all right? Try the breathing. Okay, Michael, I don't have to pee. I tried your damn breathing. I did it 8 times. My heart rate's lower, but you know what? I'm not falling asleep. What's going on? Here's the good news. There's now been research on something called non-sleep deep rest. So this is just lying, quiescent, so in the dark, quiet, nothing going on, just lying there. It turns out it's rejuvenative. Not the same as sleep, right? It's worth about an hour of that is worth about 20 minutes of sleep. So if you have a patient who's lying there for 3 hours, they're actually getting about an hour's worth of sleep. Okay. So once you educate them on that fact and they know that, then their anxiety starts to go down. This is an anxiety issue in the middle of the night. That's it.
That's what I was saying when I went like this, because I always feel that people I know that can't sleep, they're dealing with a lot of stuff in the daylight hours.
Well, and that's the other thing is what happens is once they start thinking about stressful things, right? And so what I try to get them to do is, again, focus on the breathing. And what's nice about the breathing is it forces you to count. It's very difficult to count and have negative thoughts at the same time. Like to actually try to do that. It's very difficult to do.
Sheep, though,
Exactly, right? Now, by the way, if you want another method for counting sheep, I was talking about it today, the old 1, 2, 3 over the fence doesn't really work. But if you count backwards from 300 by 3s.
Ooh, that's tough.
That doesn't get your heart rate up?
It doesn't. It's mathematically so complicated, you can't think of anything else, and it's so damn boring, you're out like a light.
Wow. You know what I do to help go to sleep? I have 2 things I do. One is I pray, and I just continue to pray. Like the prayers my mom and dad told me when I was little, right? Or I have this one visual that works every time. This is so weird. But I picture myself bowling in a street.
Bowling in a
is so
street.
random.
A bowling ball, and I'm like,
Did you used to do that as a kid?
No, I think I always wanted to though. So the bowling ball goes to the middle of the street, just a normal neighborhood. But my vision is I'm following the ball, and you can hear the bowling ball hit the gravel. I'm listening to it, and I just follow this
Are
bowling ball.
there pins in this vision?
No, it's just going.
Okay.
It's like
infinity bowling.
Yes, and every time I'm just picturing this bowling ball and hearing it.
You can hear the sound,
and that's the last thing I remember.
And then you're off in La La Land.
Yeah, it works every time.
It's
me.
almost like a mantra.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of people will
for a simple person.
Yeah, absolutely. So remember, mantras don't have to be complicated. Mantras are not even sometimes full words. So having a visual mantra, which is again, so it fits the purpose, and here's why: it lowers your anxiety.
Right.
Okay. Right. And that's really what we're talking about here: is biology wakes us up, anxiety keeps us up. Okay. So understand that you didn't do anything wrong to wake up, but now it is kind of your job to stay chill and be able to get yourself back to sleep. And how do we do that? By lowering our heart rate and letting anxiety reduce so the natural sleep process can take place.
A couple months ago, you were on my show, and we were talking about melatonin. You just brought up melatonin.
I know. Let's talk about it.
I was like, sometimes I was taking extra melatonin.
Please don't do that.
I know.
Yes, he warns people every day about that.
I thought, so now I only take the 2 that I normally take. I'm supposed
Perfect.
to take. But then I started, I haven't run this by anybody, but I started taking CBD.
So you just hit on the 2 big topics that I wanted to talk about within Insomnia, which is melatonin and cannabis.
Oh, good.
All right.
Yeah,
so let's address both of those, because Carrie and I were talking about it on the ride over, and we were thinking, these are 2 things that a lot of people use externally for sleep.
And they use them without any medical guidance. So we want to give them medical.
Like me with my doctor right here.
Exactly.
I have not run this by her at all.
I'm just finding this out right now. Yeah.
So let's start with melatonin, since it's very easy to grab a hold of, and it's legal in all 50 states. So first of all, melatonin is a hormone. A lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, it's a root or a supplement or a thing. I don't know exactly what it is. It's a hormone. So there's a really good reason why you don't go down to the local drugstore and get testosterone and estrogen as hormones, because those have to be regulated, because hormones tell your body all kinds of messages to do all kinds of things. And that really is something that a healthcare provider should be, monitoring and seeing what's happening. And unfortunately, melatonin, the FDA decided to not make melatonin classified as a hormone in 1974, I think it was, in the Supplement Act. And so now you can get it everywhere. Here's what's crazy. Did you know it's by prescription only in most places outside of the US?
Go to other countries. DHEA, melatonin, all the things that we just use over the counter are prescription.
Yeah. And here's another one that a lot of people don't know is high doses of melatonin are used for contraception.
You mean they make you fertile?
They do the opposite.
They do the opposite. Okay.
They don't allow you to be fertile. So here's where it gets weird for me, right? Is there are lots and lots of pediatricians out there who turn to parents and they say, oh, your child isn't sleeping, give them some melatonin, it's not going to hurt them. I personally can't think of anything worse than entering a contraceptive into a young female body when there's no immediate need for it. Makes no sense to me. Right? So number one, nobody under the age of 18 should be using melatonin. By the way, children up to that age have roughly 4 times the amount of melatonin that they require. They don't need it. They don't need it. There's one group of children where I like melatonin in, and that's children on the autism spectrum. There's been significant data to show that higher dosages, we're talking about 4, 5, 6 milligrams, will work well in that particular population. Now, you probably just heard me say a high dose of 4, 5, or 6 milligrams.
And people are taking 10, 15 over the counter.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem is it's readily available and people are taking way too much. Oddly enough, there was a really interesting study done about 9 months ago where they pulled 25 different melatonin brands off the shelf and tested what was in the bottles. Not a single bottle had what was on the label. Not one. They were either too much or not enough. So buyer beware. There's a lot of hanky-panky going on in the melatonin universe, okay? Now, let's be fair. There's really only 3 reasons you would need melatonin. Shift work. You, by the way, are a shift worker, okay? You don't have any choice. You got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get to your show?
2:30.
2:45.
2:45, right? So you're up at 2:45 in the morning. That makes you a shift worker. Melatonin makes sense for a person like you, okay? But for somebody who just says, I've got insomnia, melatonin's not what they're looking
Or an
for.
athlete, not good for an athlete. No.
Generally speaking, I don't like it in athletes because the hormone has other effects that are in their bodies. And to be fair, most athletes should sleep like a stone. I mean, they put out so much energy.
Right.
They are such good shape. They really should be doing, pretty well. The right dose, by the way, is somewhere between 0.5 and 1.5 milligrams, which also is almost impossible to find outside in the universe, right?
Yeah, I think 3 milligrams is commercially what you see is the lowest dose out there.
Yeah, like 3s, 5s, 10s. And so what I tell people is if you're going to get a gummy, which most people do, chop it in half. Also, by the way, gummies or tablets, it takes almost 90 minutes for melatonin to get up and in. Whereas if you do it sublingually, so if you take a dropper, like a tincture, and you put it underneath your tongue, you can get it up and in about 20 minutes.
Well, that brings me to CBD.
Yeah.
So I was taking some CBD pills to go to sleep.
Yep.
And then my trainer, who is at Benacer, said he takes CBD for other issues he has. And I said, yeah, I take these pills. And he goes, they're like 90% of it doesn't work when you take a pill form or something like that. And
Right.
it doesn't get in your system till wherever. He was take the tincture. So now I do a tincture before bed.
Perfect.
But I've never run it by anybody. I don't know if it helps me sleep because I heard that it does. So I don't know.
Let's talk about CBD and sleep.
Well, I was going to say we could be tracking that because we wear trackers. So you would be tagging on your tracker when
Right.
you're using it. When you started using it, look for the difference in the data.
I've never tagged it. I don't tag. You tag all the time? I never.
I don't tag all the time,
I
but I
didn't
tag
understand.
when something is unique.
But do you tag like you wake up in the morning?
I
and you
tag hyperbaric when I do hyperbaric.
But do you tag what happened yesterday, or you tag when you're going to bed? You go, here's what happened today.
I tag when I go to bed, here's what happened today,
Okay.
impacting what's going to happen that night when I collect
so
my data.
I've never done that before, so I should tag.
Well, it would just be helpful just because we can start to look at the data and see where there might be some data differences. As a general guideline, cannabis and sleep do mix, and they mix okay, but there's a lot of things you need to understand. So number one, the higher the level of THC, the worse the sleep.
I don't think there's any THC in the.
There can be in CBD, yes.
There
really?
can be very, very trace
Absolutely.
amounts, but also I want to give people an understanding of cannabis in total, and then I'm going to break it down into the different constituents. So, and just so that we're clear, I personally am okay with THC, but you need to have a small amount. So when you have large amounts of THC, it raises your heart rate and it lowers REM sleep. Those are two things we do not want to have happen. So going to bed stoned is never a good idea, okay? Now, if you use a medicinal product, right, and what I would say is you would have a small amount of THC, then you would have something called CBN, as in nighttime. So there is actually only one study literally in the published literature that shows that CBD does anything for sleep. What CBD does a great job of is lowering anxiety and helping with pain. If you have a pain issue or an anxiety issue that's messing up your
You're
sleep,
not sleeping.
right, then that's what it's going to attack. But I want to be very, very clear. CBD in and of itself really does not have a tremendous effect on sleep. It has effect
So
on
you treat the anxiety, and then maybe you can sleep better.
Right. But what I would do is if I was going to be using a cannabis product for sleep, and I recommend cannabis products for several of my patients, what I would do is I would use a ratio. So I would say for every 1 molecule of THC, I would want to have 3 of CBN and 3 of CBD. Right. And so and you can buy products that have already got this setup in there. Right. And so what you do is you look for a sleep related product that's got CBD, CBN, and a small amount of THC. And I think that's really where you're going to probably hit your best mark. Believe it or not, I actually take patients to dispensaries sometimes just to teach them, like, and kind of see what's going on. Here's a really interesting, we were talking about prescription aids and cannabis. Here's a really interesting study out of the state of Colorado. So they found a county in Colorado where there were no dispensaries. And they monitored the OTC sleep aids. So the Benadryls, the Tylenol PMs, the Advil PMs, and looked at consumption, right? And then a dispensary opened up in that county. Guess what happened to the number of OTC sales?
They dropped.
They dropped dramatically, like by 25%. A second dispensary opened up in the same county and they dropped again. People are looking for a solution.
Absolutely.
Okay. And cannabis is the next Ambien.
Well, plus-
no question.
But cannabis is also, they say it's natural. It's not. You're not going to get addicted. You're not going to get that type of thing.
Look, at the end of the day, if you take something every single night, there's a level of addiction that's there, whether it's psychological or physiological. I don't think I want to split those hairs. But what I can tell you is there's also nothing wrong with needing something to help you sleep. Like if you're a paranoid schizophrenic, you probably need to take Ambien. Okay, like that's just part of what happens in that regimen. If you're bipolar disorder, you may need something to help you sleep. Okay, if you have major depression, you might. Like, there's no shame. I want to be very clear. There's no shame in taking a sleeping pill, but that is a relationship between you and your doctor. And that's one that you have to be very tight on and understand how it works. Sleeping medication is not candy. A lot of people are like, oh, I've got sleeping pills. You want one? You know, I mean, it's unbelievable. People pass out these things all the time. They can definitely be dangerous. Like, you never mix them with alcohol, which a lot of people
Everybody
do.
mixes them with alcohol.
Right. And then you end up with real problems on your hands, like people getting into cars, cooking food, doing all kinds of crazy stuff in their sleep. So, like, you have to think through the idea. If you're not sleeping well, okay, what are the things that are going on in my life that I might be able to improve? Caffeine, alcohol, stress would be the biggies. Understand what my chronotype is, so I go to bed at roughly the right time. Honestly, after that, if you could just do a little bit of exercise during the day, maybe get some sunshine, I think I'm good. You know, like, that's really kind of what you need. But most people don't do all that. Right? They're stressed. They don't have an opportunity to, you know, work on a lot of these stressful things. They drink too much caffeine or alcohol. Or
When should you stop caffeine? Excuse me.
I tell people to start stopping caffeine at around 2 p.m.
Oh, wow. That late?
Well, here's the thing. Caffeine has a half-life of between 6 and 8 hours. So it's a good place to start. Now, what do I want? I would prefer it if people only had 1 cup of caffeinated beverage roughly an hour and a half after they woke up, and then they never had another one.
You know, I was experimenting with that. I never drank coffee, and then Carrie
started him on it.
She started me. Dr. Carrie started me on coffee, right, for the whole fasting thing.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I don't like coffee, and it kind of calms me down a little bit, you know. But it was working as far as the appetite suppressant.
Right.
But what I started doing was I was drinking a cup of coffee every time we played commercials. Every time we played a song, I'd get up. I was doing about 10 cups of coffee before 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Not
it was not good. I wasn't feeling it. So then I cut immediately down to 1 cup. And that's it. And it's the same effects, like 1 cup.
Absolutely.
And I feel like I did some sort of, you know, case study, clinical trial. 1 cup of coffee is all you need.
It's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
So I'm an anomaly. So we
She
joke
is.
about this all the time because
drives me
I'll
crazy.
drink 4 to 6 shots of espresso on my nightstand as I'm going to
I
bed.
remember you telling me that.
And he always says, "There's no way you're sleeping." So we got
What
an
did we
Aura.
do?
We got an Aura ring, and I sent him my sleep data, and he's like, "Damn, you go like into deep sleep within 3 minutes,
Yeah.
and you crash hard." And we were talking about normals, right, for deep sleep. I get right around 2 to 2.5 hours of deep sleep, an hour and a half to
2.5
2
hours of
hours
deep sleep?
per night.
Unbelievable.
And REM. So I get over 4 hours
Yeah.
between every night, pretty much every night. Well, you know, everything's not consistent, but 80% of the time, 90. And he's like, "How is that possible with that espresso going to bed at night?" I'm like, you know, I've done it since I think I was like 5 years old, honestly.
Yeah.
Have you
So-
done the test on anybody else besides her doing
what
espresso
I
before
think
bed?
is going on, and so it's very difficult when your doctor, and you're a sleep doctor, drinks espresso before she goes to bed.
I don't counsel anyone else to do this. I just want to be really clear.
And so you're talking with your doctor, which I do on a regular basis because she's also my friend, not just my doctor. And I'm like, "Carrie, there's no universe. Like, come on, cut the bullshit." And so we looked at her ring and she was right. And so what I think it is I think that she does not produce the enzyme that metabolizes caffeine. And so I think it just runs right through her.
Wow.
I would
and-
agree.
And so there are people out there that do this. Now, some people will say to me, "Oh, caffeine." No, caffeine really does not affect her, at least not in the sleeping realm.
don't
Or
think
in,
it affects
or
me
in the
either.
heart rate or blood pressure or
I
anything
just think
like
it
that.
makes
Which is quite
Does-
remarkable.
Does it suppress your appetite though?
No, not
It
that
totally
much.
does that for
I
me.
pretty
Yeah.
much eat
Yeah, you
stuff
pretty
all
much-
the time.
Yeah, I was going to say you eat all the time.
I can do a cup of coffee and not eat all day. It's really
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that does not happen to me.
That doesn't happen to me either. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, when you're looking at the different things that are out there, cannabis, melatonin, caffeine, like, you need to start thinking about, like, whatever I'm putting in is going to have an effect, right? And so whatever you're trying to accomplish, whether it's 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep, whether it's not waking up, whether it's more REM, more deep, whatever your goal happens to be, my goal personally is just to wake up and feel good. That's my only goal.
Feel
I have.
rested.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I wake up and I feel good and I look at my ring and it says I had a shit night's sleep. I'm like, wait a minute.
Right. So that happens more often than not. Right.
Right.
And so, so a lot of people don't like that. So what I tell people all the time is you should only look at your data once a week.
Ooh.
You don't need your data every day. What good is it going to do you?
You're still going to do what you need to do that day.
Yeah.
You're not going back to bed.
No way.
But then whenever I have a good night, I what did I do last night?
Well, you compete in the
Yes.
Oura Ring.
Yes,
That's
I do.
part of the problem. Yeah.
I do.
Right. What I'm saying is don't. I'm saying collect your data during the week, and then at the end, look for some trends. Look at the end. What night of the week do I sleep the best? You might find that every single week, Thursday nights is your best night for whatever reason, because you've got something else that goes on.
Because Sunday
Friday
nights I
morning.
have anxiety because I got a show to prep the next
Right.
day that it's been a couple days and I get pretty nervous.
So
I also find this. Sometimes if I sleep, let's say 4 hours, 5 hours a night, there are nights where I get the most deep sleep
yes,
during that short amount of time.
absolutely. And that's okay. Here's the thing to remember is this unit that we live in is much smarter than we are. And it will get what it needs when it needs it. Right. And so there's some nights, and just to be clear, I'm the sleep doctor, right? There's some nights I don't sleep so good. Okay. There's nights I've had insomnia, right? Some nights my body is more interested in doing something else. And sometimes you just have to be like, okay, it's not like your head's going to pop off, right? Because you didn't get enough sleep that night, because that's probably happened to you tens, if not hundreds of times. So just kind of understanding, it's really about acceptance in an interesting sort of way. Because I talk with people about insomnia a lot. And one of the big things is people are like, it's the competition. My bed partner can fall asleep. Why can't I? My coworker says they get 9 hours. I can't even get 3. You know, look, I'm 5'9". I'm never going to dunk a basketball. It's just not going to happen. Okay.
It does happen. There are 5'9"
Trust
guys.
me, Muggsy Bogues and Spud Webb was my favorite growing up.
Right.
But I mean, at the end of the day, they're outliers, and I'm probably not, right? And there's some things you just have to accept about yourself,
Okay.
and that's okay, right?
Okay. Very good.
So I have a question
Fire
because
away.
obviously I deal with a lot of insomnia. I think the statistic I read, you can weigh in on this, was about 1 in 3 people will deal with insomnia at some point, or
Yes.
lifelong, or situational. We've talked about situational impacting it. But to me, there are medications that are overprescribed by a lot of providers that I like to tell people, it's not just about saying, no, you shouldn't do this, but that actually do long-term harm to patients. So can we touch on a couple of those? Because I think it's different than the occasional Unisom or Benadryl, Advil PM, which is really just Benadryl. Right. Using those on occasion to follow sleep. It's the addiction, like you said, be either physiological, psychological, whichever way, that I say you're actually not just taking a pill that you're addicted to, you're actually never getting actual sleep. Right. Your brain is not registering the things. So we do see early onset dementias, which is a big issue that I think is not as correlated to it as it should be. I don't think people talk about enough about sleep aids and early onset dementia. Yeah. Hopefully we'll start talking about it more. But if you had to say, what are the big 3 pills that you say, you know what, if you can avoid these or you can find a way to get off of them, what would you advise?
So the easiest way to answer that question is to tell you about a patient that I have. So I have a patient who was taking Sonata to fall asleep, Ambien in the middle of the night, waking up and taking Adderall to start the day, XR, like the extended release, and then taking an IR at 3 o'clock. Okay. This person was 78 years old. Okay. And they came to me. They're a very famous consultant in the entrepreneurial world.
Can we have their name?
I cannot say their name. And he came to me and he said, I've been going to my neurologist who's been prescribing, different medications for a while. And he's been trying to tell me that I need to get off of these. And he turned to me and he told me that at 78, if I stay on these, my brain will turn to mush. And I said, that is probably one of the more accurate statements that I have heard. So to long way around to say, long-term use of these medications, again, with your doctor and understanding what's going on, may be appropriate in a small percentage of cases. But there are very few people in the universe that have what I call a broken sleeper, right? That have to be on drug forever, right? I mean, and so just as a caveat to this story, so number one, many people might not know this, but Ambien has a much longer half-life than Sonata. So he had the reverse. So the first thing I said was, you're a mess. Can you do me a favor? Put the Ambien in the front of the night and the Sonata in the middle of the night, because I was going to get rid of the middle of the night Sonata eventually. So I got him off of the middle of the night Sonata. Then I halved him on the Ambien. Then I started working on the Adderall. Right. And by the way, this is all in conjunction with his physician. And so while we start doing that, we got rid of the IR during the day, and then we had the XR. Then we started to lower the XR and move the IR to the beginning of the day. And all of a sudden, I got him off of everything. just click, boom. And he was motivated. And the reason he was so motivated was because he was like, I can think. It was fascinating. This guy makes his living off of creating these intellectual tools that he gives to entrepreneurs, and he gets patents on them and things like that. He said, Michael, since I've been working with you, my productivity rate has tripled. He said, my staff is furious. He said, I'm doing more work than they know what to do with at this point, and it's all because you got me off of those drugs.
So he's off of
everything.
And he's sleeping.
Sleeps like a charm. Wow. No problem. So the point of the story is, yes, we do know that many of these medications out there can have long-term effects. And it's not even the ones that we think. So anything with a PM is not a great idea.
Right.
Okay. And I think that's where you were going with your question. Because when we look at Benadryl, which is the PM, there's direct evidence now to show that daily use of Benadryl will in fact lead to Alzheimer's.
Correct.
Like it's a very direct link. We know exactly what's going on now. This is not necessary. Now, if your allergist has you on Benadryl for extended periods of time, that's a different story. You want to talk with them about that.
But there's alternatives to using that as well.
And there are alternatives to using that. But at the end of the day, if you are taking allergy medication every night to fall asleep, it's going to turn your brain into mush. And that's really not the direction that we need to go in. When I use medications within the practice, and you know this because we've worked together on many patients, the physician will prescribe a medication to break the cycle of insomnia, not to leave people on drug for years and years and years. And to be fair, sometimes it takes a while, right? Sometimes people need to be on drug for 3, 4, 6 months before we get a steady sleep cycle. Then we teach them how to sleep and we slowly taper off the medication. And lo and behold,
they sleep.
Right? It really has a lot to do with stress and your stress management, and then just really understanding yourself, your body, and your sleep cycle.
What about like with this insomnia talk, sex? Does sex help you sleep?
So sex helps men sleep, not women. So as the age-old joke goes, most men fall asleep after sex and women are up and ready to go. So there's actually been 2 studies, unfortunately all in Drosophila. So I don't know how close we are to fruit flies, but one of the things that happens with fruit flies, male versus female, is males have a tendency to relax and sleep. Females have a tendency to nest.
You mean they haven't studied this in humans?
They have not. I'm not
It's
aware.
time to start a study.
Yeah,
Right.
really.
I mean, we could definitely do a fun survey and we could probably figure it out. But the question then becomes why, right? And so it may have something to do with orgasm. It may have something to do with sexual positioning. And there's a whole host of different things that they think it could have something to do with.
The position could help with it.
If you really want to get into it, so the thought process is
Physical exertion they're
Right.
talking about.
So the goal, the thought process is men
interesting.
are exerting more physically than women, especially if you're in the classic missionary position with man on top, woman on bottom.
Okay, because like I'm so competitive with my Oura Ring that I'm looking at, okay, I got, let's say 20 or 18 minutes of deep sleep, no orgasm the night before. Oh, hour and 10 minutes, guess what? We had sex, right? And so now I'm telling my wife, this is really going to help me get some deep sleep. And it doesn't do anything. She still shuts it down.
So here's where I would go with that if I were you, is I wouldn't say that it would help you every night, but I would say that it would definitely probably be somewhat helpful, probably 2 to 3 nights a week.
Yeah. Okay. So then I thought, like for fun, but also seriousness, I'm monitoring. I'm like, okay, we didn't do it 2 nights ago. We did it tonight, and then nothing this day, something this day, and I'm literally thinking that is one of the important things in getting deeper sleep is an orgasm. And then it's like, well, I was in Hawaii last week by myself.
Right.
Got things under control. Sleep wasn't that great. So is it not the orgasm? You know what I mean?
Right. So the question is it the connection? Or is it the orgasm?
The connection is another thing. Like
And
the
I think it's the connection.
Well, I
that
think
has more to it,
it's a natural anti-anxiety drug.
for sure.
sex or
Yeah,
connection.
sex.
Yeah.
But I mean, just
Well,
also
the connection with the sex is
just
the
like
natural.
skin to skin
Yeah, well,
hugging. It's like
it
there's
produces
gotta be
oxytocin.
something there.
And that's exactly where I was going to go. I think it is the oxytocin.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would argue, because if you look at it, if somebody just gives themselves an orgasm versus being with someone to have an orgasm, it's very different. Right. And so that's kind of what you're talking about here. And from a sleep perspective, it's not just the physical act of orgasm, I think, that's allowing people to fall asleep. I think it has more to do with the connection.
So then that's so stated though, in the morning, every once in a while, You know, as early as I get up, something happens.
Right.
Hasn't happened in a long time. But when it does happen before I go
You
to
get
work.
up at 2:45, dude.
I know. But sometimes something happens. And when it does, I have the best day.
Yes, you do.
Do you know what I mean?
That's
Because-
the oxytocin again, though.
For sure. It's
Yeah.
not only the oxytocin, it's giving you oxytocin to start your day.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally like smoking a great big oxytocin joint in the beginning of the morning, and you just got that high all day long
It's
because
euphoria.
it lowers that stress.
Okay, but then I thought it's going to make me tired. That's why, remember they used to say there was that no sex before a fight, boxers?
Right.
Because it would make them tired.
Right,
And
which
so
is not true.
Oh, it's not. Because then I'm like, oh, wait, I don't know if I want to do this. I got to go do a 4-hour, 5-hour show. I need to be on. I don't want to be tired.
You'd be fine.
Okay, good. I need to, you know, I know my wife's coming here today for some stuff, and I wish she was here now, but then it's like, oh, wait, this is going to be a podcast. Hey, I need you to zoom into this point here, the podcast. Listen to this.
Don't you worry.
Yeah. Let's talk about sleep apnea.
Sure.
Since you're the sleep doctor. I have sleep apnea.
Right.
I feel like I'm an expert in sleep apnea. I haven't been tested. Now, I'll just say I was getting a haircut for this broadcast today, and my beard cleaned up. And my barber says to me, he goes, I snore. My wife is furious with me. I think it's starting to cause problems. And he's like, happy wife, happy life. And he goes, I might have sleep apnea. And I said to him, and I might be wrong. I said, if you go to the sleep doctor's website, there's a sleep apnea test or something, right?
Absolutely.
That you can order.
Yeah,
So,
right. So you can do
you
it
can
at home.
order a home sleep test and figure it out yourself. You have to talk with a physician, so it's not like you're completely on your own or anything like that. But yeah, here's the bottom line when we start to think about sleep apnea, and you had been correctly diagnosed with it. If you have undiagnosed sleep apnea, it leads to a whole host of so many different medical
Chronic
complications.
medical diseases, yes.
Right? So hypertension, all kinds of cardiac problems, stroke, death. I mean, the list goes on and on. Literally every organ system gets affected by getting bad sleep. And so when you do that to the system, it kind of screams out at you. And so looking for treatment modalities turns out to be a really big, important thing. Now, a lot of people know about this thing called CPAP, right? Continuous positive airway pressure. So basically, it's kind of like a hair dryer that blows up your nose and pushes air down into your lungs, right? Kind of basics behind the physics of it. About 40 to 50% of people do really good on CPAPs. I want to be clear, though, 99% of people, it fixes them. But only 40 to 50% of people will actually tolerate and wear it. So they now make oral appliances, which is a mouth guard, kind of like you see the athletes wear, but it's an upper and a lower. And the lower comes out a little bit past the front, and it opens up your posterior airway and allows for you to breathe a little bit better. So that's another option. There's also something now called Excite OSA, which is basically a TENS unit for your tongue. So this is something that you wear during the daytime for about 20, 25 minutes. It reduces the size of your tongue, very small, does not affect taste, does not affect voice, nothing like that. Gives more space in the oral cavity, thereby allowing you to breathe better. Some people, we get them off of CPAP for that.
So they literally have a fat tongue?
Exactly.
It's like you've been diagnosed with a fat tongue.
Absolutely.
Because you lay back, your tongue covers your airway?
You nailed it. That's exactly right.
And it works by the TENS unit shrinks your tongue?
It's truly remarkable. I would argue it's probably the biggest innovation that we've seen in sleep apnea treatment in a very, very long time.
Wow. Well, I mean, as a guy I've had sleep apnea for maybe 15 years, and I love my CPAP. I love it.
Yeah.
Like
You're, again, 1 and 2, hate it.
Well, the problem I have now are lines from in my radio show. I'm doing TV hits or they're filming stuff, and I'd be on TV and I see the line.
Right.
So I started modifying things where, you know, thank God for COVID when everyone's wearing masks.
Yep.
I found this mask for sale at a booth in San Diego, and it's like a ninja mask. So you know where the eyes, I put the mask on, and where the eyes are, I pull it down with my mouth. And then I put the mask over, and then it kind of gets rid of the.
You got to take a picture.
He has pictures. Trust me.
At one point, I put the mask on, then I put a pair of underwear over my head, Lululemon underwear,
Even better.
Nice. And then it would help keep the marks away.
So don't wrench the mask so tight.
Yeah, but then air comes out, and then I have this beard.
Okay. So number one, we'll talk about the beard in a second. But let's say you didn't have any facial hair. What you do is you take a little bit of KY jelly, and you put it around the side of the mask. Not Vaseline. Petroleum-based will actually eat through the plastic.
Where am I going to get KY jelly?
Oh, come on.
Gee, I wonder. Every drugstore in the universe. And what happens is if you use a water-based lubricant, it'll form a seal like a gasket would on your face. So you don't have to wrench it tight. And so it actually blocks. Because right under your nose is where we have the most air leaks because it's this crease.
Or up here, and then it gives me dry eye.
And it gets it in your eye. But again, if you have a little bit of KY and you put it on the mask itself, and then when you place it on your face, it forms this gasket, and it works beautifully, and you don't have to wrench the mask.
So let me tell you my newest thing.
All right.
And I know you know about this, but sometimes you forget. a friend of mine had COVID and was put in the hospital, and she was like dying.
Oh.
She gets out of the hospital, and they give her this oxygen tank.
Right.
Right. So she's fine now. And she says, I have this oxygen tank. Do you want it? I'm like, sure. So I have it hooked up to my CPAP.
Yeah.
Right. At a level 2. And it made too much noise. So I could only use it when I was going to nap in the daytime because my wife couldn't sleep. Right.
Okay.
But now I got 50 feet of tubing and I put it down the closet.
Right.
I
You hide it.
I turn on the closet, I turn it on, I close the closet door, then I close the bathroom door, the tubing comes all the way up.
Right.
And I just, a little bit of oxygen. And I feel that with my Aura Ring sleep, that let's say I was going to have a 70 sleep, with the oxygen, I think it takes me to an 80. Does that make sense?
So
could it?
So number one, I would be, well, it probably doesn't change your oxygen concentration all that much.
Right. It's such a low flow.
Right.
But I actually don't have that feature in my ring. I don't know my oxygen concentration.
But I would say that having oxygen in the system is always going to be good for deeper sleep. So if I had to guess, and I don't think anybody's done a study where like we've administered oxygen at night to see if it increases deep sleep or increases REM sleep. If I had to guess, I would say it probably increases deep sleep, physical restoration.
Because I would think oxygen is good no matter what, anytime,
Right.
right?
Pretty
Well,
much.
you can have too much oxygen. And
You
I think
can
that's where
definitely have
he's
too much
hedging on.
oxygen.
So normally we prescribe oxygen as a bleed through into a CPAP if your oxygen levels drop below 88 is kind of the traditional benchmark. But that doesn't mean people don't benefit if they have higher oxygen levels from still having supplemental oxygen.
Right.
So you could still be getting a gain. We just don't really know what that gain is because we don't treat that normally.
Because I was going to ask you too. You told me to put it at a 2.
Yeah,
I feel like you should go higher.
Well, see, that's what we're getting into. So then you
but
can
now
start.
But now profile like Michael Jackson.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what I
a
mean?
whole different story.
Right.
Well, yeah, you can actually get oxygen toxicity.
You
You can actually you can decrease the respiratory drive by having too much oxygen. So you're going to tell your brain, I don't want to breathe. And then you'll stop. Now you're on CPAP, which is forcing breaths.
Right.
So there's a paradox there to
It
begin
gets
with.
complicated.
But you don't always want to over oxygenate.
At what level is that? How
I
do
think
you know?
most of us healthy people walk around 96, 97%. I mean, if you're tipping 99, 100 all night long, over time, that could cause some negative effects.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why we don't sleep in a hyperbaric chamber.
Right.
Right. All night long.
Right.
Right.
Could
'cause
you?
it
Could you though?
You could not sleep in a medical grade hyperbaric
Right.
chamber all night long. You would get what's called oxygen toxicity, which would induce seizures, and you would not do well.
Right.
So there is a theoretical limit of how much oxygen you can feed into your brain, into your organ system before you start to see negative effects from what you're doing. So there's a balance.
The tongue thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
How does somebody do that?
It's by prescription. You just go to exciteosa.com and you punch in your zip code, and they'll find a doctor near you who can.
But how do you get diagnosed for having a fat tongue? Like you literally go to your doctor and
You just have to have the diagnosis of sleep apnea.
oh, okay.
Because most people with sleep apnea have got larger tongues. That's really, believe it or not, one of the big physiological markers that we look at.
A big tongue.
That and weight loss, and weight gain and weight loss.
Because I've lost the weight. I feel pretty healthy. I think I am healthy according to all my
You-
blood work.
absolutely,
so it's like,
yeah.
Why do I still have sleep apnea?
Because it's not just a weight-driven disease. It's also got to do with your tissue and your anatomy, right? And also, don't forget, as you continue to lose weight, you'll lose more weight here in your neck. Because guys, we have a tendency to lose weight or gain it right here in our necks and then kind of right around our bellies, and that's kind of the last places that we have a tendency to lose it from. So once you continue on that journey, I think you'll find it gets better and better. It also begs the question that we were talking about earlier, which was these new GLP-1 drugs that everybody's getting on, the Wegovy's and the Mounjaros and all of those.
Semaglutide.
So a lot of people are looking at those and saying, hey, should I get on that? And then can I get off my CPAP machine if I lose enough weight? And so the potential is possibly, but we need to do a study on you after you've lost the weight to see.
I don't really mind the CPAP. The only time the CPAP ever bothered me is when my son, who was a Boy Scout, who became an Eagle Scout, we'd go camping.
Yep.
And I'd have to bring it, or I'd get a portable one, you know, with a generator
Yeah.
at one point. And it was like that took up all the room in my backpack.
Right.
Where all the other dads are pulling out hibachis and stuff like that. My backpack was a CPAP.
Yeah.
It sucked.
Absolutely. But you probably didn't keep everybody up all night long with your snoring.
You're right.
And all of that
Greatly
good stuff.
appreciated by all, I'm sure.
Okay, so real quick, around the room real quick about any more sleep apnea, because we know you got to catch a plane.
Yep.
So what's up? Anything else you want to say about
Well, I want to go back to the Wegovy question
Yep.
because I mean, I think that is really cutting edge. And a lot of people are trying to figure out how to repurpose this drug, and the FDA is trying to figure out how to relabel it. But to be very, very fair, I mean, this drug's been out 15, if not more years,
Correct.
Under different names. So we've been using it in medicine very long time, and we weren't really paying attention to the side effects, but someone got really smart and said, hey, gosh, people who take this drug for diabetes don't really want to eat that much anymore.
Right.
And so then we figured out it was a weight loss drug. And I love the idea that they're now kind of correlating that with other diseases beyond just weight loss, using it. Obviously, cardiovascular disease is hitting a lot of indications
Right.
now, and people are saying this could reduce cardiovascular risk, which is stroke, heart attacks. And it's all tied to the same thing, though. Lose weight, be healthier.
Correct.
Eat better.
Correct.
Because it's not just weight loss. I always tell people the drug doesn't actually make you lose weight.
Right.
It makes you make better choices about life, which you can do without a drug. So you don't have to have the drug. But the drug definitely tells the brain to act better, make better choices. I don't want fried foods. I don't want sugars. And by doing that, you know what happens? People lose weight.
And
They
they
start
sleep
to
better.
feel better and they sleep better.
Yeah, because we didn't even get into that before about what to eat before you go to sleep.
Right.
You know that guy who's kind of a freak, Brian Johnson?
Yes.
Yes.
You know that dude's last meal is 10 hours before he goes to sleep?
So
10
I'm-
hours.
I got to be honest with you. I'm not a fan.
Right.
I don't.
Agreed.
I don't see what he's doing as helpful
Or healthy.
Or healthy. I think, unfortunately, he's showing every extreme that he possibly can. As a very wealthy man, he's going out there and he's trying all these extremes. And unfortunately, I don't think he's setting the right precedent for people out there. And I'm not don't really understand what his goal is. Like he wants to actually get younger, is what he states in his videos. Like that doesn't seem. I'm pretty sure it doesn't work that way. And I don't understand what his motives are and kind of where he's at. So I'm concerned about a lot of his methodology. Also, he's not a physician, so he has no idea what the long-term consequences are of the stuff that he's
He looks
doing.
weird too. He doesn't look healthy to me.
He doesn't look healthy to me either. I mean, nothing against him aesthetically. Like, I mean, he's a muscular man and he's an attractive person, but he does look quite pale. Maybe he just doesn't get a lot of sun. I don't know. But I mean, he could probably use some vitamin D.
But let me jump back to foods. So is there a time limit that you should stop eating before you go to bed to get a good night's sleep?
What I like to tell people is what I kind of do is what I say, it's a 3-2-1 rule. So stop alcohol 3 hours, stop food 2 hours, stop fluids 1 hour before you lights out, as a general guideline. That
1
works.
hour will stop you from peeing 4 times in a night.
Well, there's a lot of caveats. Obviously, talking to your physician, if you're a person who does get up 4 times at night to
Right.
urinate, which I did not know about.
Just last night. That's the first time this happened.
And that gets into the whole issue of insomnia. So we end up flipping back into that. But I mean, then you're going to stop fluids 6 hours before you go to bed.
Correct.
And that's a state of dehydration, which we don't want people to be in. But you have to pick and choose your battles.
Right.
Because getting up and truly having to urinate multiple times a night is not helping you get a good night's sleep. It's not getting that deep sleep. It's not getting the REM that we've been talking about.
Right.
But are there foods you shouldn't eat before?
Anything with high sugar, anything with caffeine in it, that kind of stuff. Although I have to admit, my wife told me I can never tell people they cannot have chocolate because she eats chocolate every single day and it does have caffeine in
Yes,
it. You
it
can have a
does.
small square of chocolate every day. The sleep doctor says it's okay.
Carbohydrates tend to make you feel sleepier.
Yes,
But, you know, the truth is for health, you should actually be eating protein before bed
100%.
because we don't get enough protein and our bodies become anabolic. So
But
they
you say
eat up
protein
our muscle.
Before bed, like I'm eating protein good night, or eat protein is the last thing you eat. 2
Well,
hours
if
before
you
go to bed?
if you listen to Dr. Breus, he's saying 2 hours before bed. And I mean, 2 hours is not that long of a time before you go to sleep. So a lot of people do have problems if they eat a large meal, immediately go to bed. Then we get into issues with reflux
Right.
and laryngeal regurgitation and not feeling well, and they have to sleep sitting up. And so you have a whole new saga of health problems. So we say don't eat a big meal and then go lay flat. The body's not
Right.
really designed to accommodate processing a large meal and then not being in the
Right,
upright
either
position.
lying
Yeah.
down.
Speaking
Yeah,
of the
those are
body
bad.
in bed, is there a better sleep position?
So I would argue that the back is probably the best sleep position unless you snore, have sleep apnea, and then your side would be. Backs are great because it's the best way to displace weight across the skeletal frame without, jacking your neck one way or another, or, being in some weird position.
So a quick recap. You said sex every night before bed is great for you to get.
I did say that, as a matter of fact.
Oh, my wife is here. Oh,
Sorry, Blake.
all right. Thanks, Doc. I know you got to go. Thanks
Yep.
for jumping
All
on
right.
the podcast. Experimental. It's a
Thank
lot
you.
of fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so welcome to our podcast. This is a little bit different today because this podcast is a spin-off of our radio show.